Welcome to Friday Focus, June 2nd, 2017. And I'm going to talk about something that we were doing pretty good in our office. We launched it maybe 2 or 3 years ago and did it kind of poorly. Then in the past year, we got doing it better. And I see sometimes maybe some departments are doing it great and some really aren't doing it at all. And that's the daily huddle. And the daily huddle is daily. And what I'm hearing is that some people feel they don't really need to do it, and they're questioning if it's necessary, or maybe not engaged, don't get the team engaged. I'm going to talk to you about kind of the plan and what's kind of mandatory. So the daily huddle is intended for a group of people that are going to work together as a team. Usually anywhere from 2 or 3 people up to about 20 people. If your group gets bigger than 20 people, maybe it's too many. And it's where the group of people will talk about certain things, 3 things, and I'll talk about that in a second. And the reason is that what will happen is we'll think during the day that we all get a chance to communicate and we can share things with each other. So we don't really need to do a daily huddle. Why we need to block for 10 or 15 minutes in the morning and do a daily huddle? Well, what happens in reality is that when you're on your work day, you got the patients and production or your tasks or your jobs ahead of you, and you might be communicating 1 or 2 people, but you're not really communicating with your team. You also won't have usually a chance to talk about some of the key things that have to happen. So there's a few requirements for the daily huddle. First off, it's required. Everybody needs to be on a daily huddle. If you're not on a huddle, you need to work with your team members to figure out where you're most appropriately going to be huddling at. Secondly, it's every day. Okay, I was here in Shelby Wednesday and didn't really go off. People weren't prepared. And sometimes it's like one person sort of just saying some numbers. That's not a daily huddle. That's somebody giving you like a heads up. So daily huddle is done in a standing fashion. And the reason to stand for your huddle is that it keeps you engaged and realize you should be talking, engaging, and getting it over with in about 10 or 15 minutes. There's obviously exceptions when you can't stand. Maybe you're doing a remote one, or maybe you're pregnant, but in general, standing. It's done every single day, even on a short day. It's done at a consistent time. Now, you might have a situation where one of your teammates can't be in and they could potentially remote in, or you have a second huddle with a different group of people. And there's going to be 3 things that we're going to talk about at the daily huddle. And you can talk about more than the 3 things, but there's 3 key things that should be discussed about in that daily huddle. Number 1 is what's going on in the next 24 hours. Might be what you're stating. And sometimes in some departments we have metrics. We're scheduled for X number of dollars and we're a little short. So that would be an example of what's going on in the next 24 hours. It could be that we got a really kind of a good busy day happening. But what is going on in the next 24 hours? Number 2, what are your metrics? Kind of said it a second ago. It might be like you're talking about your revenue metrics was expected. You might be talking about what happened yesterday. So what's going on? So what's going on in the next 24 hours, and then your metrics might be something that's retrospective, something that happened yesterday or last week. Your metrics might be your lead measures for your wildly important goal, or it might be your wildly important goal itself. It might be your production numbers for the marketing team, it might be their percentage of sales that they're spending and the relative number of new patients. I know the call centers are talking about new patients and the quality of the leads. I know that the vein departments are talking about how many same-day mappings are doing and how many people are getting rebooked, what's on the schedule for today, how much revenue is scheduled, and what's our bonus target. So you should know what your metrics are. If you don't know what they are, you're not really engaged. You should know what they are. If you don't have a metric for your department or for yourself, you need to figure out how to get one. That's the only thing that makes you valuable, is having a scorecard to measure yourself by. With no scorecard, nobody's keeping score, you don't really excel. And number 3, we call them hurdles, but what's in the way? So what are the hurdles that are keeping you from hitting your metrics, or might be difficult in the next 24 hours? It might be that you're overbooked. And hurdle is we don't have enough medical assistants. So you got to use that time to decide, is there a way we can get around this with our existing workforce? We got to reshuffle some people. Sometimes you might have like an office where there's somebody in surgery, but there's no surgery going on. Obviously, during the daily huddle, we can decide that we're going to talk to surgery. We don't solve problems at the daily huddle. Okay, problems should be taken offline and discussed afterwards. We're going to talk about what the hurdles are and what the solution already is, or what the solution is obvious. But if you get in a situation where you're debating that we need to hire somebody new, that's not the appropriate time. That might be in a different portion of your meeting rhythm. And this is something that leads to success. And most companies that scale are applying the daily huddle. Different companies call it different things, like the daily roundup or the daily lineup, the daily meeting, the daily rah-rah, but we call it the daily huddle. And we used it from a concept which was called the Rockefeller Habits. And it was a book written a few years ago where they looked at the things that made great companies great, and they used Rockefeller as an example. But one of the things that's consistently made great companies great was communication. And the first step to communication is the daily huddle. And it has to be throughout the office. I expect every member to identify where their huddle's at. Some people don't belong to a specific team, so they should be joining another huddle or maybe going to multiple huddles, whatever is closest to your team. But I expect everybody to be in a daily huddle and to be aware of what's going on in the next 24 hours for that group, what are the metrics for that group, and what are the hurdles in the way. Another important thing is who should speak. It should be everyone. It should not be a lecture with one person just reading off a bunch of numbers. That's not really a huddle. Somebody might be responsible to read the patient reviews. Okay, she reads them. You guys can talk about them, clap, celebrate. And then the next person might talk about the numbers. The next person might talk about the hurdles. The next person might talk about the schedule, what we're going to do about it. So that's a Friday focus. I want to make sure that we all know that we're responsible to grow the business. It's not going to be just one person or a few people. It's everybody's responsible to grow the business, grow the profitability of the business, to grow our wages. And step one is the daily huddle. Thank you.